Welcome to the G3X Podcast, where it's all about godgymgrind unfiltered. This one being episode 13 of the podcast, and I have here special guest Andre, which is going to be a fun conversation. We have some awesome stuff to talk about when it comes to fitness, anime, and connecting fitness and anime with a lot of other cool stories. So it's going to be a super fun episode. But Andre, thank you so much for being here. How are you feeling today, man?
I feel wonderful, man, and I appreciate you inviting me on this podcast here because I'm very excited to connect with people such as you because we both like fitness, anime, and a bunch of other stuff. And we've actually met off Instagram threads if the audience is familiar with that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, no, exactly. So the audience there, like how Andre and I connected was exactly through social media, through their Instagram and thread. I saw his content, followed him, and here we are now. I saw his content. I thought it was like super awesome. And I was like, you know what? Hey, man, let's do a podcast. And here we are. So love it. But Andre, so to the audience though, who might not be as familiar with you, give yourself a little bit of an introduction, where you're from, what you do, and we take it from there.
All right. So basically, I'm from Trenton, New Jersey. I was born there, spent most of my life there. And then I moved to Charlotte, North Carolina back in 2015. And it was a wonderful city to live in because I'm a Carolina Panthers fan. So I lived by the stadium. And it was just, awesome going there with friends and like seeing the games. And I recently moved to Raleigh back in 2019. And I love the city now because it's more family-oriented. There's plenty to do, a lot of parks and everything. And the traffic is just not as bad. Good food options. Now, what really got me into training was interesting because back in high school, I saw my friends wanted to get in shape and wanted me to play sports with them. But I'm like, nah, I ain't trying to do no football or baseball. So they persuaded me to start lifting. And what happened was I actually tore my chest muscle. So that was dissuading me from lifting for about 2 or 3 years because I was scared of actually injuring myself again. Went back into college, did all that. Saw a bit more progress, but I didn't know anything about nutrition whatsoever. So I was just kind of winging it and just asking my friends for advice. And they're just like, just lift and get big. And about 2-3 months, I saw some progress. But those newbie gains, eventually that stops. And if you don't progress with that, increase the weight, increase the load or do a different variation, you're not going to grow. But then 2015, before I moved to North Carolina, my mom actually went to the gym. And at first I didn't want to go with her because she wanted to go at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. But then eventually I'm like, you know what? I might as well go anyway and get in there. So I started working out and I actually liked how it felt. And then I made a commitment the first time I went back. I'm going to do this for the rest of my life because I just love the way it feels. And, lifting, it has so many benefits for you. Like, number one, you just feel like you're better. You have more energy. You're in a better mood. And plus, it's one form of self-improvement. So you can use working out and training as a clean slate to increase other areas of your life. So whether, that's fitness, business, relationships, dating, all of it ties together. And working out takes a lot of discipline and it takes patience to build your body the right way because you have to figure out okay, this is a long-term thing. And if realistically to build maybe 10, 15 pounds of muscle, it might take you, as you're new, maybe a year or two if you do it the right way. But you have to make sure everything's dialed in, your nutrition. You have to make sure your cardio's dialed in, you get enough rest, taking the right supplements, of course. But make sure you read the ingredients of what you're taking to see if it's legit or not, because you don't want to take anything with too many fat burners or other materials in them that you don't need, because it's better to take something all natural and pay more for it, because you want to focus on your long-term health here. And anyways, what really got me into the whole anime aspect of fitness was about 2 years ago, my friends and I were talking about anime because they're fans of it too. And they said, how about you always talk about anime, Andre, you like Goku, Zoro, and One Piece, and Vegeta. So how about you do some content with your fitness? And at first I'm like, I don't know about that if people will like it. So I started doing some research myself. And once I did that, I'm like, you know what? Maybe this is a good idea. So I decided to take the advice finally. And I've seen a lot of articles with people talking about Goku, Vegeta, and Zoro. But what I didn't like about it was a lot of that training is unrealistic. Who's going to put up, a barbell in their mouth, like what Zoro's doing, or swing something around with his sword or anything. So I think, okay, how can I make this realistic where it's actually fun, where you're not hurting yourself? And even with Vegeta, for example, the way he trains is he trains until his body fails him. And that could work in the beginning, but you're going to tire yourself out very quickly if you do that. So my main thing with anime is helping, men that are 25 to 34 years old that love anime get in shape, like their favorite anime heroes. But my goal is to basically help you do this in a way where you can do it where it's fun, simple, as well as enjoyable for you. And with Goku, the thing with Goku is, I like how he prioritizes rest and recovery, because that's most important, because he will always take his sensory beans after training. If you're a Dragon Ball Z fan, remember him going to Namek and Dr. Brief's spaceship where he was doing all that training, And then, like,
Yeah,
he
yeah.
started at 20 times gravity.
Yeah, they know 100G or something. Yeah, yeah.
True. And when he got to Namek, he was so much stronger. If Vegeta couldn't understand, and Goku's like, number one, I prepare my body and I always rest it. And that's ties back into regular training. You have to give your body enough rest. So it's better to go in the gym for 30 minutes or train at home for 30 minutes than, bust your butt for 2 hours and like you're all sore.
Love it. No, there's a lot of cool stuff there that you talked about. So let me actually then talk, like, let's go, like, love the whole overview. Now let's get a little deeper into your story then. Let's say going into like high school there, as you mentioned, like had the injury there from your chest there, you pulled your chest. At that point, you said like took 2 or 3 years before you like decided to get back because, that fear. I'm assuming like when that incident happened ultimately though, like how did you, like, again, I know you said 2 or 3 years, but how did you eventually decide like, oh, hey, let me actually go back to it, or like, let me like not go as heavy to like, how are you able to overcome that fear, right? Because there's a lot of people that probably have injured themselves, haven't been wanting to go back to the gym or something. So what would you say to them, and how did you overcome that?
So basically, my main motivation was I was just tired of being skinny, so I just wanted to, get bigger and stronger. And at the time, I didn't have a lot of experience, with girls were dating. So I figured at that time, I was only like, 19, 20 years old. So once I got in shape, my main motivation was to get girls at that point in time. But then with the injuries, to be honest, I kind of winged it for the first couple of months. And I'm glad I didn't get injured again, because I guess I just got lucky. But once I got down to North Carolina, I started taking it more seriously, like started reading about recovery strategies, lifting the right way, and really feeling how your body feels when you're actually training, and don't push yourself too much. And at first I was like lifting 5-6 days a week, because based on the guy I was following on YouTube at the time, he said lift as much to grow muscle and as well as lose fat. So I did it. And then I got my nutrition down packed by looking at my Fitness Pal, downloaded that, and I started tracking my calories. And I was about 145 pounds back in 2015 when I first moved down here. And I wanted to get to about 160. And then I got there after like 3 or 4 months of dieting. But I was eating like so much food, like 4,000 calories a day. Oh. And the problem was I actually overshot my weight. So I got to like 166 pounds. But then I didn't like the way I looked because I was trying to get abs. I didn't have any abs, no definition. Mm-hmm. So I was like, I'm not going to say I was skinny fat, but I just didn't have the cuts I wanted. And then the mentor I was listening to at the time, I was reading his blog. He said, okay, this is how you lose fat. So he said, get fat burners. I didn't get, thank goodness. But he said, make sure that you track your nutrition to be at a calorie deficit, because that's the only way you're going to lose fat in the first place. You have to be at a negative energy balance. Make sure you have like caffeine at first thing in the morning when you wake up, about a cup or two, because that cuts your appetite. Then drink, water throughout the day, about a gallon. And then have like protein, at least 1 pound per gram of body weight to help keep you full throughout the day. And he said, do cardio strategically. So every workout session, maybe at the end, like do cardio for about 30 minutes to an hour. And eventually I just started seeing it come off. And it took about 2 or 3 months for it to happen. But once I saw that I had a definition, I'm like, wow, like I didn't know I could achieve that. And I was a little bit wiry, like Brad Pitt from Fight Club. So I was kind of small, but at least I knew that I was able to achieve that goal. So I was probably about 7% body fat at that point. And then my next goal became the next year to actually put on some muscle mass to like fill myself out. And really it was all trial and error for me to get where I've been, because I've been lifting for about 10 years. And each year you just learn something new by, following your own advice, what works best for you, as well as like listening to other people in the industry and just figuring out, okay, like is this realistic for my goals and my journey? And you just take what works best for you. Like just because someone's saying, do this, it doesn't have to be the voice of God just because they say it. Like figure out, okay, what's the main thing that's going to work for my individual situation, and then turn it into that. Eventually what happened was I got injured again because I was doing the double bench press with 60-pound dumbbells, and I like injured the shoulder right here.
Oh, shoot.
And the doctor told me, Andre, like, give it at least 2 or 3 weeks before you go back to the gym. Now, guess what I did?
Went the next day.
Yeah, I went the next day again. But I cut the weight in half, so I did 30 pounds and just deloaded, and then it went away naturally itself. But I would say, if you're in a similar situation, just take the 1, 2, 3 weeks off, because it's not worth your health at that time. And I was just too gung-ho about it and decided to risk everything. So if I would have injured it more, it could have been an operation or something else. So I'm saying, if you truly feel sharp pain in your muscle group of your body, take a break and, go to the doctor and figure out what the issue is. because you can always get back to lifting once again once you're better. So, and if it's a situation where you can't lift, then just make sure your nutrition is on point, you're getting enough rest, reducing stress, keep your protein high to maintain and preserve the muscle mass that you already have. And then from that point, I started researching Kino Body, if you ever know who he is. I started doing his routine 3 days a week. And at first I'm like, this has to be some BS, because how can you make gains with 3 days a week? So first couple weeks I'm like, I'm not doing this. But then I kept reading his articles about like simplicity. And I'm the type of person where I like to work out in the gym and get out. Like I'm not trying to be there 2 or 3 hours. So I started following his routine, and about 2 or 3 weeks, I started seeing gains on my lifts. So I remember when I first bench pressed again, I was bench pressing like 130 pounds at that time, which, you know, that's not a lot for like average guy, but I haven't bench pressing forever since that injury. Yeah. But then slowly but surely, my lifts were increasing over time. And about that next year, I got to like 180. So I put 50 pounds on my bench press.
Nice.
And then with the nutrition, Kino Body was saying you don't have to have your macros, your proteins, your fats, and carbs exactly 100% on point. As you could be a little bit off, like 5 to 10% off, that's fine. But just make sure your eating diet is enjoyable and eat the foods that you enjoy. Because I'm the type of person where like I don't want to like eat just healthy food. So eating like, you know, having like your vegetables, your meats, your fats, but you're not having like your sweets and treats. Because the thing is, a lot of people think when it comes to dieting, like, oh, get rid of this, get rid of that. And no, you don't have to. Like all you have to do is like figure out, okay, 80% healthy foods. And the other 20%, they could be whatever you want. So donuts, Rice Krispie treats, your own sweets. Because in my experience, and with a client I'm dealing with right now, he said, Andre, should I even cut? Because I like donuts, I had donuts every night. And I'm like, how many donuts do you like to have? He said 3, and then I said, okay, maybe that's a bit too much. So how about maybe 2 or 1, as long as you have enough room for it. So he's eating like 2 donuts a night, and he's still like losing 1 pound per week. And he said, how is this happening? I told him that it's all about calorie intake. And as long as your goal is trying to lose fat, you can consume less calories in your burn, then you're gonna be fine.
That's something I've talked about it like with past guests as well, like in the podcast. It's like, hey, you know, when it comes to, let's say, dieting, I know a lot of people think like, hey, you have to be super strict. And as long as you're in your calorie, let's say, deficit, if you're on a cut or like, you know, say on a bulk, whatever, as long as you within your range and hitting those protein goals, you can really have you can play with it. Like you can still have, let's say, your cheat meals or this and that, but as long as you're really tracking it effectively, then like, okay, you'll be fine. Because otherwise, if you're not tracking, I've known some people, it's like, oh yeah, I'm bulky. And I'm like, okay, are you tracking? It's like, no. I was like, are you really bulky? And then it's like, you're just probably guesstimating, you know? And yeah. I think it's important to really track, because otherwise it's like, then like, it's just not, like, you don't know what you're doing, you know? Like, you don't know what you're actively eating. If you're eating enough, you might think you are, but until you track, then you really know, right?
Yeah. And that's the thing is, you're kind of just guessing at that point. And what I've noticed with myself when I used to guess before I started tracking, like I would weigh myself one day and be like, okay, I'm 156 pounds. And then you weigh yourself at the end of the week and you're like 154. Like I thought I was eating 4,000 calories or 3,500, whatever it is. And if you're not tracking, you're just putting it up to guess. And you're not really going to see your goals that way. You have to track every single thing. Now, granted, like if you've been, doing this for 7 to 8 years, you don't have to track every day because you have like a mental compass in your mind. Like, okay, I roughly know how much calories I need. So I don't track every day anymore because I've been doing this for over 9 years. So in certain situations, like if I go out, like I already know how much I need. But if you're just starting, like track everything for like the first 3 to 5 years to make sure that you're reaching your goal.
Yep, no, well said. Definitely agree. Now, let me ask you the following as well then. Ultimately, okay, so during your whole fitness journey, from what I'm understanding, I know you say you did have some mentors or like people you like also watch, let's say through social, but ultimately, did you ever have like, let's say a personal trainer, or it was kind of like, let's say self-taught, but like self-taught through like the people you followed on social media or YouTube, or you like hired a personal trainer, or how was that like within your own fitness journey?
So for me, it was mostly just self-taught, just, learning advice from, edit social media people and icons and taking what worked for me. And I would try certain things out. And if it didn't resonate with me, I would either fine tweak it to help with myself and my goals. Or if it did work, I'll just stay with it. And there's some products, they'll recommend. And I got some protein powders, some creatine, and other supplements from them. But what I read about them, I made sure that with the ingredients, that they were all natural. Like there was no other fills in there, or because there's high blood pressure on both sides of my family, so I can't have anything, that's too much caffeine in there or a lot of sodium. So I take all that in consideration before I buy something. And then I also look at the reviews of the product to make sure it's legit. Because a lot of people online lie about a lot of supplements and they'll mislead you. So you have to be very careful what you choose.
No, yeah, you're spot on there. Yeah, no, and I know when it comes to like certain like brands, yeah, like sometimes, especially in the food, like the deeper you get into like the food industry, the labeling, it's a lot of like slightly little misdeceiving things that you're like, wait, what? I don't know if that's happened to you. So it's like,
Yes.
like sometimes it's like, let's say this has 8 grams of protein as an example. And you're like, when you really read the ingredients, it's not like the real protein, like that whole like PDCAA or something like that it's called, is like how much is like actually absorbed and so forth. So those are things I think people should also be aware of too, that otherwise it's like, hey, you might think you're eating a specific good meal or not, but you maybe you really aren't, Now moving forward there to ultimately then, so now I wanted to tie it down here a little bit with the anime aspect, right? Now, when you're anime, then that's something you've also been already like, that's something that you're already into, correct? Or did you like develop like your like let's say your liking of anime over time, or was something like since young that you already had a passion for and everything of that sort, or how did that go about?
So to be honest, I got into anime, if you're familiar with the program called Toonami back in like, the late 90s or 2000s. So I watched shows like, Dragon Ball Z, Sailor Moon, Digimon, Pokemon. And the first show I ever watched was Dragon Ball Z. And back then, I always used to look forward to seeing every episode every week because that's when they aired it. And to be honest, like I haven't seen all episodes, but I've seen like, the main arcs, like, the Sand arc, the Namek arc, Frieza, Android arc. And I just liked how, Goku and the characters would always work together to like defeat a common enemy. And as a training was always an aspect of it. Because in order for them to beat the next boss, like for example, when Goku was first in Dragon Ball Z, when his brother Raditz came to Earth, the dude like knocked him out with a kick. And he took his son Gohan. And then he had a team with his arch enemy Piccolo in order to defeat Raditz. And that goes to show sometimes, an enemy can become a friend of yours due to certain circumstances. And when Goku died to sacrifice himself with the special mechanic that Piccolo used on him in Raditz, Piccolo raised Gohan and all that, taught him, trained him, got his mindset right. And then Goku was trained on King Kai's planet, where the gravity was 10 times as much, just the same thing as on planet Vegeta, where the sands are from, 10 times gravity. And Goku learned the Kaioken technique, then he came back, and he absolutely destroyed Nappa without even trying. But then, once Vegeta fought, that battle, like at first, Vegeta got the edge, but then once Goku did Kaioken times 2, times 3, times 4, started being Vegeta up. And then King Kai told him, hey, bro, like, what are you doing? Like, I told you don't go above a times 2 because your body can't handle it. So when it's time in the finish, it's like, you don't want to push your body too far because your body can't handle it, and that can lead to injury or stunt your progress. And Goku realized in that moment, once he sent Vegeta up in the air with the Kamehameha, that my body pushed my body too much, and then he came back, did the Great Ape thing, and then Goku learned, like, man, like, I should have paced myself. But all in all, Goku got stronger from that, and then Saiyans have the Zenkai boost ability where if they have near-death experiences, they become a lot stronger. And this still applies to have Saiyans such, Gohan, Trunks, Goten, and it just shows them that they get stronger to overcome the power of their foe. And that's what I always liked. And even when it comes to the humans, such as, Tien, Krillin, Yamcha, like as long as they train with the gravity that they learned from Goku and Piccolo, they got stronger. So I just like the aspect of, friendships from that show, training, having the right mindset and overcoming challenges. So, and it teaches you, and they also meditate a lot on that show. So it teaches you to calm your mind and to just stay focused on the task at hand. And even later on in Dragon Ball Super, this is what Frieza did. And the coming back in his movie, Resurrection F. So he meditated for 4 months and did all this training with his subordinate and got stronger. So really Dragon Ball Z, back then, I didn't try to do it to fitness. It was just because I liked the show. But then when my friends and I talked about this, I'm like, oh crap, maybe you are right. You've all watched Dragon Ball Z back in the day or whatever show it was. And then even with Vegeta and stuff like that. And how him and Goku had different philosophies, but they still, reached the same goal eventually. And then there were times where Vegeta passed Goku. And Vegeta, he just trained so hard. He put himself so much where he basically forced himself to level up. Whereas Goku was much slower, but it goes to show you different approaches can work sometimes. And even at the end of the show, until Dragon Ball Super, Vegeta actually started leveling back to train a little bit because it's like, I ain't got to train like this too much. I could, chill a little bit. So it goes to show, like, just because you're trained one way, you can always be open to interpretation to learn another way of training that may be more effective for your body type. And now we get to One Piece. When I was little when I first saw it, I couldn't get into the show because One Piece really starts off super slow for like the first 60-something episodes.
It starts super slow. Yeah, exactly. I always tell people, hey, if you're able to survive like the first 40, 50 episodes, then okay, you made it. But like, try to make it happen. Yeah, no, facts.
Yeah. So as a child, I watched maybe 20 episodes and I'm like, this ain't for me. But then I came back to it about 5 years ago and my boy, he watched it. He was already on like, I think the Sabaody arc. He's like, Andre, you got to watch this, man. I'm like, I don't want to watch that. Like, it sucks. He's like, no, get through the first 60 episodes. So I'm like, I just started watching it. It was boring, but then as you get to like 65, you get to the Alabasta arc and stuff starts getting interesting. Like you start seeing like the hero like saving the country, and then you realize Crocodile's a villain and all that. And then Luffy goes through trials and tribulations where he lost Crocodile twice. The first time he should have died, but Nico Robin, revived him. Then the second time he lost again, but he realized water affects Crocodile. Then the third time, he overcame him eventually. And it shows that's a hardship. And Luffy has been in plenty of situations where he had to like rely on different powers or protecting his friends to get to his next goal. And the same thing with Zoro, how he wants to be the greatest swordsman in the world. And he learned this back on Shitomi Village when he was a child. And him and his friend Kina, they started training together. He could never beat her. So his main goal was to beat her one day. But unfortunately, she died because of an accident when she fell down the stairs. And the father was like, nah, since she's gone, like, I can trust the sword to you. So ever since he was 10 from that moment on, he was always training, lifting boulders. He would swing the sword around. He'd beat the adults and everything. And then he motivated people around him. And eventually, when he was 17, he was able to slice a boulder for once. Like, now I'm strong enough. And the elder told him, like, yo, like, it's time for you to, branch out. You're too strong here. So, he did the whole bounty hunter thing. And then it skips to, like, when he meets Luffy. And then, Axel Morgan was messing with Kobe and the girl and stuff. And Zoro only sacrificed himself to basically save the girl. But then, once Luffy told him, like, yo, he's going to kill you, that's when Zoro finally, started fighting and took the man out. But then, gets some time further, and his real test came when Mihawk came. And that, when the arc, when Sanji was introduced. And Zoro, he was a bit, too cocky with it because he was beating everybody else. And he's like, Mihawk, he ain't going to do nothing. But he had that knife and he just got him in the chest right there. And then Zoro realized at that point, like, okay, this guy's just pairing me with a knife. He thought it was disrespectful, but Mihawk's like, no, like, you're not worth the sword. But then once Zoro started, upping his techniques, Mihawk's like, okay, now I see where you are now. Like, that's when he put the sword on because Zoro knew, like, I can't beat him. So he let Mihawk slice him down. And Mihawk's like, I'm not going to kill you yet because there's potential in you. So he gave Zoro that slash to teach him, like, get stronger, like, because you're going to fight me one day. And that's been Zoro's goal, and he's never lost ever since at that point. And then, like, later on, as he keeps, fighting enemies, getting stronger, he begs Mihawk to train him. And Mihawk's like, why do you want me to train you for? He's like, I need you to do this because I need to get stronger for my crew. This isn't just for me. And my captain, like, everybody got separated. So I need to figure out a way, to protect my captain and everybody else. And then, he got stronger and stronger. So what I like about Zoro is just his ambition. He's a leader. He's also, like, second command when Luffy's not around. And he's able to, like, make sure everybody's, like, still on a straight path. And the way Zoro works is he's always constantly training, lifting weights, meditating on the waterfalls. He tends to stay away from the crew most of the time because he just focuses on improving himself. And that's the main thing is, figuring out the best way for you to improve your life. Like, constantly leveling up. Like, don't stay stagnated. So that's the lesson that Zoro teaches us. And he's taught me is, always improve yourself, stay laser focused, and when you challenge yourself, you're forced to level up. Whether that's, working out, getting on podcasts, connecting with people, business, dating, you can't stay in the same place because what's going to happen is you're going to stay stagnated and eventually you're just going to drop and keep getting worse.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think for me, like, relating that to like like, and all those things, like with each of those anime characters, there's a lot of like, let's say tenacity, hard work, grind, effort, like we say, like to say here, godgymgrind, and that aspect of like, hey, grind it, whatever life throws at you, grind it out, overcome it, because you'll get better at it. It might not be easy, but you overcome it. And I mean, I love these anime characters, because all the animes you mentioned, like, I'm a big fan of them too. I love them all. And like, as I was watching it, and hearing your own personal, let's say, reflection of it is like, okay, it's not just me, right? It's like someone else also like has that, like felt that same way too. And like for me, it's like, let's say with Zoro, for example, one of the episodes that really hit me the most, and I'm pretty sure you remember in the thriller bark arc where he takes all of like Luffy's pain, right? And he's just like there, like standing. And then Sanji's after like, yo, what happened to you? And to this day, like to this episode, they never like talked about it. He just took it on himself, and like he never like talked about it or anything. I'm like, hey, that's crazy. It's like from both ways, from let's say a physical aspect, like, as we like to say, train till failure in that aspect. Like, hey, try to push yourself to like grow muscle. Even beyond that, it's like, and I get, even though it's an anime, but the message is still good. Is like, hey, when you have yourself a real circle, like a real friendship, a real people around you that will be willing to literally ride or die with you because, they're real supporters or they're real friends of you, and there's not many people out there like that, you know what I mean? But I thought that was cool. And yeah, like the fact that, let's say during the whole 2-year hiatus, remember that they took that after that whole situation there at the island. Now I forgot the name of the island, actually, the whole where all the, do you remember what was the name of it? Which one I'm talking about? With all the little bubbles popping up and everything.
So I think it's Sabodi Island, I believe.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, somebody or something like that. And like how they all went to like train to like get better. Like you were mentioning, like Zoro goes to Mihawk to like train, and then freaking Luffy there is training with the
Silver's Rayleigh.
Yeah, so yeah, exactly, Rayleigh and so forth, So what really stood out to me on that aspect, like, okay, how do you tie that, like you were saying, with like the whole fitness or grind aspect? It's like, hey, just like, the biggest message, I mean, ultimately, it's anime, so they're doing like certain unrealistic things with their training, but the concept still applies. Like, hey, push yourself as hard as you can, really stay focused on what matters, right? Like in some of those animes, you can say like, hey, they're focused on what they got to do, right? They know they got to train, they know they got to get better, otherwise they're not gonna be able to even take any future enemies or anything of that sort, and that applies to your own self in the sense of both your own body physically training, like, hey, get better, get stronger, but not just in your own physical muscles, but in life overall. How many challenges life throws at you, problems, uncertainties, things you didn't expect to happen, be it in business, be it in, life, work. And, you can't just like quit or like, no, I'm done. You have to overcome it. And, you look back at it and you're like, hey, wow, that helped me become better than I was before, you know what I mean? And I'm pretty sure you could probably tell stories of where at one point you were either stuck with like, let's say, a specific weight or a specific problem or something, but you kept at it and you overcame it, you learned from it, you grew from it. I bet you look at it now and you're like, wow, that used to stumble me, and now it doesn't, like, I see that as easy, but at that point in time, it was like super difficult, or like, how do I overcome this, right?
Yes.
Yeah, definitely. Now, let me ask you then the following. Ultimately, just correct me if I'm wrong, though. I just want to make sure I also follow this correctly. You personally, I know you said you're also like you're like also training other people, correct? Or you're in the process of like getting like a trainer, or you're already certified as a trainer. Correct me if I'm wrong there.
I'm already certified with ISSA.
Beautiful. Okay, awesome. How was that whole process? Talk to me about that process. How was that, like getting certified, studying for it?
Because so basically at the time I was a driver for AutoZone, and I decided to purchase, I think it was $900 or whatever it was. That was the basic pack. But I'm like, because my friends had said, how about you train in the gym for a little bit? And I decided, you know what, I wanted to train in the gym. So I studied every day. I got off work for like 3-4 hours at a time. And it was long, man. Like I say 30, 40 chapters. So every day I'll like, read for an hour, then I'll like study the notes, pass the test. And in there, like there's certain questions you need to know, like, okay, how does muscle systems work? Okay, how does it come with like, nutrition and all that, to make sure you're getting clients the right advice. And in there, the information is much more condensed, and it's more what's the word I want to say? It's much more factual than, free videos on YouTube where they just give you general stuff. So in there, I just had to read it, make sure I passed it. And then that whole thing, like, I remember a couple of times I'd take over again because some of those questions, like, the cellular pathways, the muscle systems, that all, how fast twitch muscle fibers that really help when it comes to like explosiveness as well as muscle mass and slow twitch, which is more endurance based. And you have to know all that when it comes to training somebody, because the last thing you want is your client to get injured, whether that's in person or online. And so I'll say the difference with that is I trained a few clients in person at the gym. Now, it didn't last long because, I don't want to go into it, but it wasn't for me, because when you go to a lot of gyms, the client's not getting what they need. Because number one, like a lot of those sessions are rushed. So there have been plenty of times when I worked at a gym, a client would come in late, due to traffic or whatever it was. And then, then you had to rush them through it's like a 60-minute session. They get there 25 minutes late. It's like 35 minutes, you got to rush. And I didn't like that. Because the client's like, okay, like I'm not getting the rest of my session. I came late. Like you can't do it. So I'm like, I can't. My manager said I couldn't because I have somebody else coming in. And I didn't like that because like, you're not giving somebody the attention they need by working them at a gym in most cases. And then the client's paying too much money because God knows how much the membership is. It depends what gym you go to, but the gym I was working at, the membership for a single person was like $200 a month. So, most people couldn't afford to train. And plenty people say, Andre, I want you to train me. Like, you know what you're doing, but I can't afford it. I have a family, I'm a college kid. And then, like, also, like, to turn the lights on in the gym, that's another thing. Like, you're basically paying for everything for the cut of action as a client to keep the gym running. And with online, you can basically focus on dealing with the client one-on-one, like whatever the issues are. You can just take your time, block out time to listen to them on a call, or if they email or text you, you can like read, okay, like what does he need? Because he wants to get shit like Vegeta's. He can't do a bench press because it hurts his shoulder. So, okay, Andre, what are you going to do now? Like, I'll give him a dumbbell bench press neutral grip because I'll reduce the impact on the shoulder. Or if he can't do a pull-up, then he can do the assisted pull-up. If he can't do a dip, he can just do dips in a chair. So there's different variations where it comes online. And the benefits are, I'm also able to give you much more one-on-one help because I have time blocked out, 10, 15, 30 minutes, whatever it is, to identify your problem specifically. And then when it comes to actually getting the results, I'll show how can this benefit you. So, okay, you will have more energy. You have one-on-one coaching from me, where it's going to be tailored to your individual issues as well as your goals based on the application form that you fill out, whatever we talk on the call, which I write down. So everything's tailored to you. So if you need extra help on, certain tips, or if you need, motivation, I'll provide that for you one-on-one, because that's what's in the program. And I even go above and beyond to make sure that you do reach your goals. So if you're skeptical, like, okay, Andre, like I had to train before, okay, he didn't listen to me, and I just see the results I wanted, I may ask, okay, why not? Like, okay, he didn't track anything. He didn't give me no motivation. He ignored me, or he gave me some, regular program. It's like, no, I don't do that. I give you exactly what you need when you need it. And if we need to do fine tweaks to the program, just let me know. Hey, Andre, like this isn't working, or how about we switch it up? Or even when it comes to nutrition, I'm not a nutritionist, so I can't really give, full advice. But I could just do general stuff, like make sure, eat, healthy vegetables, have protein, healthy fats, eat carbs to give you energy. That's all I can do. And then from there, I'll like have you write out yourself and say, okay, what do you need to change? Okay, what do you want to keep? So basically, online coaching is all about help you get in shape with your favorite anime hero, Goku, whoever that is, in the best time-effective way, as well as what's the best way for you to do this based on your individual body composition, your goal, what do you have in injuries. And I also like to connect on commonalities with my clients because that makes it so much easier to relate to them. So if they, a fan of JoJo, I never watched the show, they may have some JoJo references in there, then we could talk about that. So definitely I'm going to start watching the JoJo show, even, reading the manga. So when my client, asks me, okay, like, did you see this JoJo scene, man? I can actually talk about it. So basically it's just figuring out, okay, like, what's your client into? Because when you have a target market, you have to know exactly what he or she, what they want, their age group, their interests, because they want you to feel like you feel them. And from there, they'll buy from you, not just for the money, because you're doing this to help people. So they're buying from you because of the 1% uniqueness factor, which my mentor told me about. It's like, what is that 1% y'all have in common? that they'll buy from you rather than somebody else, rather than you try to, go for everybody. Because if you're going for everybody, you're going for nobody.
Yeah, no, and that's so important. Even with any business, who is your target audience? You hear that ultimately over and over again, like, who's your target audience? Who are you trying to reach out? Who you're trying to, connect with? What problem are you solving? And I do like the fact that you mentioned there that ultimately knowing what they're into so you can relate to them, right? And that's like let's say business 101 and like marketing 101, like, hey, connect with your audience, something that's relatable to them, not what you, let's say, as the business or trainer want, but like what are they interested in and how can you give value to them? So I really like how you mentioned that. That's fair. I like how you like really put emphasis on the client first, right? I remember I was talking to another guest on one of my podcasts, and that was one of a comment that she mentioned, that sometimes maybe a trainer might not be directly focused with their client. Maybe they're slightly distracted on their phone or something like that. It's like, hey, if they're willing to, take the time to get a trainer, like, hey, dedicate time to them to help them get better ultimately, right? And I think that's very important for sure. When it comes to, let's say, over your years of experience, I don't know how long you've been training, but let's say over your years of training people, what would you say you've personally seen as common misconceptions or mistakes that people tend as they're starting into the gym, or maybe they've already been into the gym, but like that you frequently see that you're like, hey, look, that's not necessarily true, or like mistakes that you frequently see, stuff like that?
So I would say, trying to progress too soon. So, trying to like increase weight very quickly, or if you like lift a weight and you're not familiar, with exercise, it's just because it feels light. I had a client come to me and say, Andre, it feels light. I'm only lifting the bar 45 pounds. It's easy. But I had to explain, like, okay, since it's your first time, second time doing a lift, like, work with your form first, because it's better to use a lightweight and master the form. Because in my experience, when I was starting out, I neglected that. And started lifting way more than I could. And it's like, at first, you're not going to get hurt, but eventually you have sloppy form. And then that will carry over to overuse injuries. You might pull something where that could permanently mess something up. Whereas best, like, just take it slowly and then progress gradually until you're comfortable with the exercise. Or just because you see something on social media, like, hey, Andre, like, is squatting on the bulls ball a good idea? Probably not, because it takes a lot of balance to do that. And a lot of people do that, to get views and because it's trendy. And you really don't want to do the trendy stuff. I mean, leave that to the people that want to do that. Because most of the time, that's not doing any benefit. Like, the number one thing is, I'm here to like help you transform your body, not to get millions of views to do some trend.
There you go. No, 100%.
So that's a misconception. And that misconception is eating healthy all the time. Like, you don't have to eat healthy all the time, because in my experience, most clients that have done that in the past, they, maybe lose 10, 15, 20 pounds, 2-3 weeks real fast, and then they gain it all back because they were binge eating. Mm-hmm. And they said, XX told me to do this, but I asked them, did it work? And they're like, no, it didn't work. And I said, what was the issue? Like, why didn't it work? It's like, I just felt like deprived. Like, I was always hungry. I felt irritated. And I said, okay, how about if you could figure out a way where, you can eat your nutrition foods 80% of the time, and then the other 20% have whatever treats you want. And then I would like have them write down their favorite snacks. And okay, like, let's figure out, okay, once you eat your 3,000 calories and your goal is 3,400, the other 400, could be to whatever you want. So if you want to have like 2 brownies, go ahead and have it. If you want to have like Rice Krispie treats or Lucky Charms, have a bowl. If you want to have like chocolate bar, go ahead. So once they started doing that, they started seeing results much faster. And they said, Andre, this is enjoyable, man. Like, I'm actually losing weight by eating candy bars. And I'm like, I told you, it's just figuring out, okay, what works best for you. And of course, there are some people that like to eat healthy, and that works for them. But just because they're doing it doesn't mean you have to.
Yep. It goes back to what you said, like, what works for them. Yeah, I love how you say that, what works for them. Yeah, go ahead, my brother.
Now, granted, and another misconception is when it comes to bulking, there's 2 types of bulking. You have lean bulking, where you're eating, like I said before, the point I harped about, mostly healthy. Then you have your treats, and then there's the dirty bulking. What that means, you just eat whatever the heck you want to without any regard to macronutrients or anything. And I did that a little bit in my past. But the only problem is you're not going to feel the same if you're just eating like, fried chicken or McDonald's every night or whatever like that. Because I got a situation where I was doing that because it's very hard for me to gain weight because I have a fast metabolism. So what I did for early on was, okay, I look at advice online or like at a video, and it's like, oh, just eat big to get big, and I did that. Then I went to the doctor, and my blood pressure was pretty high. It was like 160 over like 100 something. And he's like, my doctor asked, what are you eating? A lot of junk food. He's like, yeah, that's why. So he's told me to cut it out. So it's better to bulk slowly because it's good for your health, and then you won't gain as much fat. So if it takes you 8 months to like bulk to gain 20 pounds, then so be it. Rather than do gain 30 pounds in 4 months because it's gonna be a lot harder for you to cut off. And then with dirty bulking, you're not putting on that much muscle anyway. It's mostly body fat because you may not be getting enough protein there with all these other treats. Yeah. So that's the main mistake. And the other mistake is you don't have to lift 7 days a week or 5 days a week or whatever it is. You can just lift 2 days a week and see results. It's just about how dialed in your workout program is. And I have my clients lift 3 days per week in most cases because with 3 days, as long as you have the muscle groups, make sure you have your compound list first, of course, then you can do your secondary exercise and tertiary exercises. And from there, as long as you're hitting the main muscle groups, chest, you're hitting back, your shoulders, you're doing your leg work, of course, squats, deadlifts, barbell curls, you're doing your bench, traps, everything else. I mean, once you do that, everything is fine. You don't really need to do anything else unless you want to hit the accessory lifts. So just keep it simple and you will see results. As long as you're doing progressive overload, keep challenging your body, increasing the weight, or doing a different variation to make sure your body doesn't plateau.
Yep, no, 100% I agree. Do you have any specific, just out of curiosity, maybe for the people out there listening, like, do you have any specific apps that you like for like either tracking your workouts or tracking your macros or anything of that sort?
So when it comes to tracking workouts, I use an app called Evernote, and I used that way back in the day. And it's a little tedious, but you just have to just take about 30 minutes to an hour to write your workouts in for each phase that you're training. And from there, you'll always have it. So you can just go right into the gym and just do it that way. Like, okay, I know exactly what the exercise I need to do, how many sets, reps, rest time, and any cardio that I may need to do, or any additional notes I need to my program. So you could just track it that way. Or if you want to go the old pen and paper route, you can do that too. But you just have to make sure you constantly having enough, like, constantly buying notebooks. And pen and paper works for somebody as well, some people. But I would say as long as you're tracking, that's what matters. Because if you're not tracking anything, you don't know what you're doing. You're just winging and guessing going to the gym. Like, you may walk into the gym one day, if you're not tracking nothing, you might be doing dumbbell curls for 50 pounds, and you go back in next week and you're doing 40 pounds and you're not seeing any progress. But once you track, you have a plan for attack when you go in there, like, okay, like, I had to do this, and that's all you go focus on. Nothing else is going to distract you because you're in there with a mission and a goal. And you have a well path of what you can try and accomplish. And when it comes to the app I use to track my food, I use my Fitness Pal, and you can just get the free version. You don't need to pay for it. Because free version has more than enough tools to track, your nutrition, your weight, trends every single week, as well as, your macros. You can even do your favorite foods, or you can even track down cardio, boxing, sports if you want to. Now, feel free to use whatever app or note planning that you want to use yourself, but those are the ones I use.
Nice. No, I love it. Yeah, I know a lot of people use my Fitness Pal, so I used it for a bit, and then I used this other one that I'm currently using for like tracking my macros, and like it works for me. And like you said, ultimately, whatever works for the person, right? I always like to ask people just what they're using because I know the audience is always like interested, like, oh, what could they be using to try something new, try something different? But ultimately, it's like, doesn't matter the app as long as you're using something to keep track of your progress in your lifts. And for me, the same. I remember years ago, like I wouldn't track my workout. So then sometimes you were like, what weight did I hit last time? And you always say to yourself, oh, I'm going to remember. And then the next lift comes when you're going to do that exercise again. You're like, oh, snap. I forgot. What did I lift again? And so then, no, 100%, once you're tracking, for me, it's like, oh, wait, last week I did this weight. Okay, let me try to go a little heavier. Okay, it feels a little too heavy. Okay, I'm not there yet, but let me try to keep pushing myself to, let's say, and then you start seeing your like progress, or you like start seeing, let's say, certain like lack of progress where you're getting kind of like, let's say, like peaking, like, hey, for the past 3 weeks, let's say I've been at the same weight. Okay, am I not pushing myself hard enough? Am I getting a little comfortable? Like, okay, let's try a different weight or maybe a different type of exercise or something to like kind of like up it up there, because I don't know if that's happened to you where you're like, hey, I'm kind of stuck at this weight. Okay, well, what do I do to like go heavier or do more reps or something, right? And have you ever found yourself in a situation, and how do you go about handling that?
So I've been in that situation several times, and to be honest, it still happens to me today where I may get stuck on a certain lift. Now, I say one of my weakest lifts will probably be incline bench press because yet the setup is kind of awkward to do it. You have to make sure you have it at the right level. And if I get stuck, the number one thing I'll do is I also switch the variation to something else after a week of not getting anywhere. So let's say if I'm doing incline bench for 12.5 for 4 reps and I give it a week and it still doesn't increase, then I'll just stop doing that movement and then I'll just go to the dumbbell version. Or I just do the machine version. So I'll just keep doing that and I'll progress on there. In that situation, most of the time, if you run into a plateau, just do a different lift. And then you'll start seeing progress on that lift. And then when you come back to it, you'll be a lot stronger. And if you come back to it again a month or two and you're still stuck, you may have to look at it and okay, like, am I having high levels of stress right now? Because if you have high levels of stress, that makes cortisol levels spike up. And when you're stressed out, that's going to have an effect on how much you lift. Because your body, when it's stressed out, that's going to lower your energy. Because it's going to try to focus on recovering. Or maybe you may be scared because, like, what if I don't get this? So sometimes it could be a mindset thing like, okay, like, what if I get injured or I'm nervous, I don't know if I can get it. It may be too hard. So sometimes you may psych yourself out before you even do it. And I've been there where it's, okay, I don't know if I'll get this. And then I go for it and I'm struggling. But then the other times it's like, okay, like, I know I'm going to get it, and then you get it. It may come up ugly or may come up slow, but as long as you get it, you got it. So those plateaus, it's going to be a part of your training no matter how experienced you are because you're going to always plateau on something. And the number one thing is to get through it, you got to figure out what can I do to get around it. And right now, an example is I'm starting to do muscle-ups right now, and I was stuck for about a week. I'm doing 3 sets of 3 muscle-ups, but now I'm actually at 3 sets of 4 now. And when it comes to a muscle up, it's not about how strong you are. It comes down to like the technique. You have to swing the right way and then push yourself over the bar. So it takes a lot of practice in order to get it. And so there'll be some exercises where you may plateau faster than others due to the load or due to the mechanics. But the number one thing is you don't want to give up on it. And then also you have to figure out, is it exercise right for my body type? Because, for example, like you don't have to do barbell squatting at all. I mean, a lot of people say you have to, but it's always the big 3. Like, no, you don't. Like, you can do a goblet squat, you can do pistol squat, you can do one-legged squat. You can do, you can even just do jumping squats. Like, just do what's comfortable for you and what will get you the gains. And right now, I'm working on pistol squats where I'm doing a body weight, and it might take me, a period of time to like do a weighted because I'm trying to get down to the floor. And I like the pistol squat better because it really challenges your balance more. And even you're just using your body weight. And it's a lot safer than doing the barbell squat because if you're not careful, that thing come down on you.
Yep, no, 100% spot on there. And I like how you mentioned that aspect of like, hey, trying other exercises. Like, yeah, I'll do the machine or I'll do the cable. Because I found myself in that situation where, hey, you know what? I feel kind of like let's say kind of stuck here. Okay, let me try other variations of that exercise, either machine, cable, dumbbell, etc. And then a few weeks later, a few months, I come back to the other one. And then let's say that same weight that felt really hard. It's like, okay, now it feels lighter. Like, okay, I'm like being able to do a few more reps or anything. And, like you kind of make some progress from there too. So spot on. No, I love it. Awesome stuff. No, Andre, honestly, this has been an amazing episode. Kind of seeing here the time. We got to start wrapping it up. Time has flown. It hasn't even felt like we've been talking for this long. It's been awesome. I love it. Definitely. And everything there, how you mentioned, like, the different things there with fitness and, connecting with anime. I loved it. I always like to always finish like the episode around this question. Like, if there was one final piece of advice or words of wisdom you can give to the audience out there, what would that be from you?
The number one thing I would say is be disciplined because there's going to be trials and tribulations when it comes to your weight loss journey as well as your muscle building journey. Like, things are not always going to be smooth. There could be times where there could be obstacles in your way. And you may think like, okay, it's not working. Like, okay, I'm trying to lose fat. Like the first 3 weeks I was able to lose 2 pounds and now these 2 weeks, nothing's happening. And it's because your body's still adjusting to it. It may be water weight, but once you get past these trials, just keep pushing forward and forging ahead, and eventually you will break through. So the same thing with building your anime hair physique. There will be times where you're going to struggle. You may be tired. And in that situation, if you're tired, still go to the gym anyway if you can. As long as you're not hurt or injured, go to the gym anyway, because there have been times where, I mean, I love fitness, but I don't always feel like going to the gym all the time. Like, sometimes I just want to stay home and watch anime and chill. But it's like, okay, if I do that, I'm not improving myself. So I have to go anyway. Then once you get in the gym, 5-10 minutes, it's like, wow, like I actually feel good now. Or when or let's say you have a crappy workout for whatever reason. when you get done, you feel a lot better. So the main thing is, embrace the grind, trust the process, and stay focused to your number one goal. And most importantly, try to get a circle of people, to push you. So if you need a workout partner, then go ahead and get one. If you need to be part of a Facebook group, then go ahead and be a part of a Facebook group to keep you accountable. If you need me to help you be accountable, work together, then I'm going to keep you accountable to what your goals are. So if you had it written down, I'll remind you like, okay, hey, Jose, hey, Juan, like, remember what we talked about in our call or when we started coaching? Like, okay, like, you said you were going to do this. Like, I'm going to be on you about this. And it's really up to you to make the change, because me as a coach, I mean, I could give you the tools and the guidance, but if you don't want to make a change, like, I can't do anything. So you have to figure out in your mind, like, okay, do I really want to do something? Do I really want to change my life? Do I really want to, like, help with my daily life? Do I really want to, like, get in shape, improve my confidence, become the best version of myself? And that's what it comes down to.
Yep. No, well said. Well said. Exactly. I love it. Andre, well said. And you guys heard it here directly on the G3X podcast. So I appreciate everyone listening to this podcast. We'll be wrapping this up. It was an amazing time. Hope you guys really enjoyed it. Andre, if the audience wanted to follow you on like social media, what platforms are you on? Where can they follow you?
All right. So my Facebook is just Andre Brown. When it comes to Instagram, it's Jawan Anime Fitness. Same thing for my YouTube as well as for my Threads account. So those are the top 3 that you can follow me on. You'll definitely see my content on there, and you'll see like workout videos. You also see stuff in my life, like dating, hanging out with friends and family, and some anime quotes from different characters. So like, let's say Natsu from Fairy Tail, Great for Fairy Tail, that tie into fitness, or even like you'll see different workouts. Like I did a Tenga workout about a month ago from Demon Slayer, so you can check all that out. And those are the main socials that I have. And also, if you want to see articles, then I have a whole article collection on Medium.com. And it's Medium at Andre Brown.
Nice. Awesome. There you go, guys. And I'll make sure I'll put it there on the description there on the YouTube. If you guys are watching this on YouTube or Spotify, it'll be on the description there. So you guys can scroll down, see the description, click on the link and give Andre a follow. Amazing guy for sure. And if you guys, just like me, love the anime content, you'll definitely connect with him and reach out. He's an amazing person. So again, appreciate everyone listening to this episode. Until the next episode, which will be episode 14. But hope you guys love this one. Until next time, God Gym Grind, and wish you guys all the best. Have a good one.
Have a good one. Peace.